So we finally got a new hero in Honor of Kings. And honestly, Lorion might be one of the most interesting mages we've gotten in a while. Because when I first looked at him, I genuinely couldn't figure out what kind of hero he was supposed to be. Like, is he a burst mage? A control mage? A teamfight mage? What exactly is this guy? Then I started looking through his abilities, and everything started making sense. This dude doesn't fight like a normal mage at all. Most mages stand in the back line, throw their skills, and hope they hit somebody. But before that, I found a cheaper way to get tokens. Normally in the official store, you pay 99 cents for 80 tokens. But on Buff, it's basically half price, around 50 cents for the same 80 tokens. And the best part, you don't even have to enter your UID. Just log in using the same Gmail linked to your game, choose the pack you want, pay, and the tokens arrive instantly. Super simple with multiple payment options. Link is in the description or scan the QR on screen. The discount is already applied through my link, which can be up to 50%. Lorion is different. Almost everything he does revolves around this floating orb. And trust me, that orb is way more dangerous than it looks. One moment, it's sitting harmlessly in the middle of the lane. The next moment, it's dragging people into fights, setting up combos, and making team fights look completely unfair. The funny thing is, when you first read his abilities, they don't sound that crazy. But once you start putting everything together, you realize this hero can be incredibly annoying to deal with. He's got damage, he's got mobility, he's got crowd control, and some really nasty teamfight potential if enemies aren't paying attention. So if you're planning to play Lorion, or you're just trying to figure out whether he's worth learning, don't worry. I've gone through everything so you don't have to. Let's break down exactly how this hero works. Before we start breaking down the abilities, there's one thing you need to understand about Lorion. And honestly, this is the mistake I think almost every new player is going to make. They're going to focus too much on Lorion himself, when in reality, the real star of the show is that orb. Seriously, if you're only paying attention to where Lorion is standing, you're missing half of what this hero does. Revolves around that thing, where it's positioned, where it's moving, and what it's threatening. The more I looked at Lorion's abilities, the more I realized something. You're not really controlling one character. You're controlling a hero and a floating weapon at the same time. And that's exactly why Lorion feels so weird when you first pick him up. Most heroes only make you think about your own position. Lorion makes you think about two positions at once. Where am I standing? Where is my orb? Can the enemy reach me? Can the enemy reach the orb? Can I pressure them from here? Can I combo from there? Once you start asking yourself those questions, everything about Lorion starts making a lot more sense. And trust me, the faster you learn to play around the orb instead of just playing around Lorion, the stronger this hero is going to feel. Let's start with skill 1 because this is probably the most important ability in Lorion's entire kit. And honestly, this is where you'll notice the difference between someone who's just playing Lorion and someone who actually understands him. When most people use this skill for the first time, they treat it like a normal mage ability. See an enemy, throw the orb, hope it hits. That's it. And technically, yeah, it works. But that's not really what makes the skill strong. The moment that orb leaves your character, the fight changes. Because now the enemy has something else they need to think about. Not just where Lorion is standing, but where that orb is sitting. Maybe they wanted to walk through that choke point. Now they can't. Maybe they wanted to push forward. Now they're hesitating. Maybe they wanted to engage your team. Now they have to think twice. That's why good Lorion players aren't just throwing skill 1 for damage. They're using it to make the enemy uncomfortable. And sometimes, that's even more valuable than the damage itself. Now let's talk about skill 2. And I have a feeling this is going to be one of those abilities that people underestimate at first. You know those moments where an enemy is one hit away from dying, and somehow they escape with a tiny bit of HP?
Rampage.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Lorion doesn't seem too interested in letting that happen. When you activate skill 2, the orb comes back to you and you gain movement speed. Simple ability. But once you actually start playing him, you realize how useful it is.
One more.
Need a little extra damage? Skill 2. Need to chase someone who's trying to run? Skill 2. Need to reposition before a fight? Skill 2. Need to get yourself out of trouble after overextending? Still skill 2. That's what I like about this ability. It never feels wasted. No matter what's happening in the fight, there's usually a good reason to use it. And the movement speed makes Lorion feel way more mobile than most mages. Now this is where Lorion starts getting really interesting, because skill 3 completely changes the way you think about positioning. Up until now, you've been moving the orb around the map. With this skill, you're doing the opposite. Instead of bringing the orb back to you, Lorion goes to the orb. The first time I read that, I immediately thought, okay, that's going to create some crazy plays. And honestly, it does. Because enemies are constantly trying to keep track of where you are. That's normal. Every player does that. What they don't expect is for you to suddenly appear where the orb is. 1 second you're standing safely in the back line. The next second, you've completely changed your angle. Suddenly you're behind them, beside them, or right in the middle of the fight. And that's when Lorion starts feeling really annoying to play against. Because just when the enemy thinks they've figured out your position, you've already moved somewhere else. A lot of heroes win fights through raw damage. Lorion wins a lot of fights simply because he's never where the enemy expects him to be. Now let's talk about the ability that's probably going to make Lorion famous. His ultimate, Starry Night. And trust me, this is the skill that's going to catch a lot of players off guard when they first face him. You know how most objective fights play out? Everybody starts grouping around Tyrant. People are checking bushes. Supports are looking for engages. Everyone's just waiting for somebody to make the first move. Then Lorion places his orb right in the middle of everything. And honestly, most players probably won't think much of it at first. It's just an orb, right? What's the worst that could happen? A few seconds later, you find out exactly what the worst that could happen is. The ultimate goes off. People get knocked up. Health bars start disappearing. The entire fight becomes chaos. And suddenly the team that looked perfectly positioned a second ago is scrambling to survive. That's what makes this ultimate so dangerous. It's not just the damage, it's the pressure. The moment that orb is sitting in the middle of your team, everyone has a decision to make. Stay and risk getting caught, or move and give up space. Either way, Lorion is forcing you to react. And that's why patience is so important when you're playing this hero. A lot of players are going to get excited and instantly throw out their combo. Don't. Take your time. Watch the fight develop. Watch where people are moving. Watch who forgets about the orb, because eventually somebody will. Maybe it's the marksman. Maybe it's the mage. Maybe it's the entire enemy team standing a little too close together. Whatever it is, that's your opportunity. Get into position, wait for the right moment, then drop the ultimate. It feels amazing, because you're not winning the fight through mechanics alone. You're winning because you waited for the perfect moment. The more I look at Lorion, the more I feel like he's one of those heroes that's going to age really well. Not because he's overloaded, not because he's broken, but because there's a lot more depth to him than people realize at first. The scary Lorion players aren't the ones desperately trying to land flashy plays every few seconds. They're the ones who stay patient, control space, think ahead, and slowly force the enemy team into bad situations. And honestly, those are usually the hardest players to play against.
Not so tough.
Because by the time you realize what they're setting up, the setup is already finished. That's what makes Lorion so interesting. He's not a hero that screams for attention. He's a hero that quietly takes control of the game. And if you let him do that, you're probably going to have a very bad time. And that's everything you need to know about Lorion. If you're excited to try him out when he arrives in Honor of Kings, let me know in the comments. And if this guide helped you understand how he actually works, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to SoloZag for more Honor of Kings guides. Until next time, take care, keep climbing, and remember, when you're playing against Lorion, don't just watch the hero. Keep an eye on that orb.